Good evening, everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. I'm Denise Fanning, and I am the art director here in Park Library and the gallery director for the Baby Room Gallery down the hallway. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. And thank you to Park Library for hosting this event and our Artist Talk series, and for supporting the programming, the arts programming that we do here in the library. After tonight's talk, there will be a Q&A, so please save up your questions for the end, and then we'll join, if you will, please join us down in the Baby Room Gallery down the hallway for an artist reception to celebrate Mira and her beautiful exhibition, Sleeping in the Mind. Please turn off your cell phones for the evening. We don't have Wi-Fi, well, we don't have very good Wi-Fi in here, so they won't do you much good anyway, but if you can, and when you can, please follow the Baby Room Gallery on Instagram and Facebook when you have Wi-Fi again, so that you can stay attuned to what's happening here in the future. Let's see. Sorry, my computer went black. Okay, it is such an honor to have Mira Burack here with us at CMU, and it's just been a really beautiful gift to get to share her exhibition here, to host her exhibition, Sleeping in the Mind, here in the Baby Room Gallery. If you haven't checked out the exhibition yet, please come down with us after the talk and check it out during the reception and get some delicious food. And then also come back and spend some time with it. Spend some time alone with it, and just let yourself immerse in it and experience it slowly and contemplatively. There is a beautiful book cart outside of the library, or outside of the gallery, that our amazing librarians have put together for us, full of titles that are related to concepts that are addressed in Mira's exhibition, things like sleep, the science of sleep, rest, healing, environmental harms, environmental healing, relationship to earth and body, lots of beautiful titles, and there's also a QR code on the book cart with an additional virtual library that's available, with many of them are free books or books that you can check out virtually. So please check that out. It's an amazing new thing we're doing here at the library, where our librarians are curating a whole bookshelf of texts that are related to the exhibition. So I'm really grateful to have that, and I love that people are using it, so please be part of those people. Okay, so a little bit about Mira. One of the many, many things I love about Mira's work is that she brings a voice to the art world that I think is so desperately needed, not only in the art world, but in the world at large. Mira's work contains a beautiful subtlety and softness, and it asks us for our calm presence and invites in us a calming. Mira identifies as part of a generation of artists exploring self-care, domestic life, and our environment. And in these times where we find ourselves with completely being oversaturated in the ever-cascading waterfall of news stories and social media voices, and things often feel high demand and fast-paced for many of us, Mira's work invites a softness, a slowing down, a healing. It brings to us a quiet contemplation in loud times. She brings us thoughtful intentionality in times of impulse and rapid-fire feedback loops. In her own words, she invites us to discover more empathetic, intuitive, and sensual ways of being that embody connection to each other and to our surroundings. And what could be more vital to our own thriving as individuals, as a collective, and as humans who are part of this larger ecosystem of our planet? She asks us, how does living close to the elements teach intimacy, provide comfort, heal, invite rest, and elicit pleasure? And I can't wait to hear more of her questions, about her questions, that her inquiries within her work, and for her to invite questions within you through her talk tonight. So I'll give you a little bit more about Mira's background through her bio, and then we'll pass the mic off to Mira to talk about her work. Mira Burack is an artist, mother, and educator living gently in an earthship on the unceded land of Pueblo peoples in the high desert mountains of New Mexico. She is engaged by the materials and beings of her daily life, plants, textiles, animals, and family, and the interior and exterior spaces around her where meaningful life experiences take place: the bed, land, table, and home. Mira was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and grew up on the coast of Maine. She received an MFA from Cranbrook Academy of Art and a BA in Studio Art and Psychology from Pepperdine University. Her work has been exhibited nationally and internationally at the National Museum for Women of the Arts in Washington, D.C., Q Art Foundation in New York City, Bridge Projects in Los Angeles, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, New Mexico Museum of Art, Cranbrook Art Museum, Media Knox Gallery in Slovenia, Art Gallery of Windsor in Canada, Kunstwerk in Wolfsburg in Germany, Form and Concept Gallery in Santa Fe, and 516 Arts in Albuquerque, among many others. She received a Community and Public Arts Detroit grant for the Edible Hut and has been nominated for a Joan Mitchell Foundation Painters and Sculptors grant and the Anonymous Was a Woman Award. She also received Site Santa Fe's Spread 7.0 Micro Grant, Hazen Schmider Prize, and the Fulcrum Fund for her Sleeping Huts long-term project. Mira recently finished a Yoga Nidra teacher training, learning the art of guiding others into a deep state of rest and presence. And with that, please help me give a very warm welcome to Mira Burack.
Hello, everyone. Great to have you here. It's great to be here. Denise, thank you for the most loveliest introduction I've ever had. Yeah, it's wonderful to be back in Michigan. I spent over 10 years of my life here. I met my husband here, and now I'm in New Mexico, but it holds a special place in my heart, and so it's really great. Very thankful to Denise for bringing me back here. So I was just curious, before we get started, how many of you are in the art department or in a creative department here on campus? You can just raise your hand. Great, great. I asked just because I really want to thank you all for taking the risk of being an artist, and it's so important in these times and in the world, and it's often very undervalued and takes a lot of internal commitment. And I just want you to know I'm just so grateful, and I just want to take a minute to appreciate that in the world that we live in. So I approached tonight, I'm going to share some projects from the past 10 years just to give you an overarching sense of my practice. And then I'll end with the current work in the Sleeping in the Mind exhibition that's in the gallery. And I really, throughout my presentation, I'm going to touch on ways that individual, communal, and collective care exist within my practice, which is both interdisciplinary and collaborative. And really emphasizing care in my practice has only deepened over the years, and really has opened up spaces for increased empathy, connection to our bodies and each other, the materiality of our daily life, and our living environment, as Denise said. And ultimately, my practice is grounded in place, the hyperlocal, my home and the environment around my home, and also with issues in the region where we live. So I'm going to repeat just a little bit of what Denise had said, but it's important for me to give a little bit of background before we get into the visuals. My family and I live rurally in the high desert Ortiz Mountains of New Mexico in Cerrillos, which is a small rural town about 40 minutes from Santa Fe. And it is the unceded land of Pueblo peoples who have really inhabited that land for over 10,000 years. And so it's really important to us to live gently on the land and to really be sensitive to that vast history. The 10 plus years that we have lived there is minute in comparison to this history. And so I'm trying to always keep that really broad, wide perspective, living there, and almost seeing ourselves as temporary inhabitants of the land in this life. And I live with my husband and 2 young children on 30 acres, and we have an earthship home, with Denise mentioned, and I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with that form of eco-architecture, but it really speaks to how I approach my practice and my life, which is there's a real blurring between interior and exterior with an earthship home. It's built, the south side of the house is all south-facing windows with planters along the house, and so you can grow trees and plants and things to eat indoors. And then the north side of the house is bermed into the mountain, and it creates a natural heating and cooling system. And the walls of the house are made of recycled materials and rammed earth. So recycled tires and bottles and cans, and in some cases, there's a whole earthship community in Taos, New Mexico, where you actually see like the bottles and cans on the facades of the homes, but ours is more concealed on the interior. And yeah, it's a very special place to live, and we're always like opening and closing shades, and so we're very attuned to the elements, opening and closing windows, opening and closing shades, really paying attention to the time of year, to the time of day in our daily life. And it's a simple, creative existence, living close to the land. It's a mile to the next closest home. We're more likely to see coyotes, tarantulas, jackrabbits, the occasional mountain lion or bear before we see a human. The plants are really beings that I'm in regular contact with: juniper trees, pinyon trees, yucca, prickly pear, cholla cactuses, broom snakeweed, and chamisa. They're really the true survivors. Like, I feel like I'm learning from them every day. They're living with little water and yet blooming beautiful gold and pink colors throughout the year, and creating sustenance for the animal life in such a dry climate. So we can eat, make tea, make medicines, dye fabric, make baskets with most of the plants. And it's just very quiet where we live. And we can see millions of stars, billions of stars at night. We make campfires often when it's not too windy, and our children run free down this long, rocky dirt road. But it's also a really hardy place. And having lived in Detroit for over 10 years, we made a drastic change from a vibrant, diverse urban community to a much more restful, still, and self-sustaining life close to the elements. And I share these details with you as an example of how place and its materiality and its aliveness influences your life and work. They really become collaborators in your life and work. And how your choice about where you live and what you choose to surround yourself with really reflects your inner values, and how you want to move through your day. So as you can see, my life and my art practice are very integrated. And my background was in visual art, psychology, and fiber and textiles. So it began as an interdisciplinary exploration. And I don't know if any of you can identify this, but I've always had trouble narrowing down my interests. So I think of my practice as more of a collage aesthetic, weaving together different interests to enhance each other. And so my work has taken form in large-scale installations, soft sculptures, intricate photography collages, architectural projects, and communal experiences and ritual. So in the spirit of the first project I'll share with you, I'd like to start with a 6 to 8 minute visualization, if you'll all be with me in this. I realize I'm not starting a traditional artist talk here, but I'm asking for us to connect in the present moment together in this space for a few minutes. So if you have anything in your hands that you can put down on the floor, And really just relieve yourself of any burdens of the weight of an object. Just get as comfortable as you can in your seat and in your position of your body. And you can, when you're ready, if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes gently. You can also just bring your gaze down in front of you if that's more comfortable. Just give your eyes a rest from sight and light for a few minutes. And tune in to your non-visual senses. Possibly the touch of the fabric underneath your hands on your lap, the surface of the chair you're sitting in, any smells in the air around you, feeling the temperature of the air moving in and out of your nostrils. Maybe discovering the taste in your mouth. Taking in any sounds around you. And the stillness and silence. Listen to your breath naturally going in and out of your body. Your chest raising and lowering, all on its own. And plant each of your feet firmly on the ground. Feeling contact with the floor from your heels to your toes. And imagine that each of your feet have roots like a tree. Many tendrils, large and small, that extend beneath the floor, under the foundation of this building, and into the earth's surfaces, intertwining around the soil, clay, silt, minerals, and sand below you. Feel your roots growing deeper, meeting up with the roots of the people nearby you, creating a network of roots that grow and communicate with each other. They are an ancient network, a community, like mycelium, highly intelligent, sustaining, and infinite, together weaving a tree of life. Imagine these roots reaching through the different layers of the earth, the crust, the mantle, the outer and inner core. Feel the 4,000 miles beneath you to the center of the earth. And now bring your awareness to your hands and imagine that extending from each of your fingers are plants that have been growing and growing since springtime. Each finger has a different species extending from it. Your hands making a garden of sentient beings that carry different purposes, wisdom, and medicines. Bring your hands together, resting in front of your heart, holding tenderly this bouquet of sacred plants. As we are in this fall season, these plants have grown to their fullest, bearing the fruits of all their and your energies and work, the fruit you so tenderly nurtured, fed, and grew is getting ready for you to harvest. Relish in what you have grown. These gifts you have manifested can sustain you and can be shared with others, sustaining and inspiring your community, nourishing you all through this season and into the wintering time. In this quiet, take a moment to honor this full spectrum of growth. Feel how after the harvest you will rest, fully restore, and begin dreaming of the next spring seedlings of ideas and projects. Slowly bring your hands down to your lap again, if they were up. Feeling your breathing again. Your chest raising and lowering. And when you're ready, take your time and gently opening your eyes, raising your gaze, and coming back to the light in this space together. Hope that felt rejuvenating after your day. So this is where I live. I'm gonna kind of take you on a travel log a little bit and share. So interspersed with some of the projects I'm sharing are quotes and prompts throughout the presentation. So if you do have something to write with or write on and you feel like taking some time to reflect for yourself, there's some questions while you're listening. The first project I'm going to share is Sacred Bouquet. What else can you offer the earth, which has everything? What else can you give but something of yourself? A homemade ceremony, a ceremony that makes home. This is from Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Collaboration is not just with humans, but with all living things. Sacred Bouquet is a devotion to the nurturing high desert plants where we live and those dear family and friends who carry us through intense, challenging, and reflective times. This piece was made during the pandemic, shortly after the vaccine started being available to people. And it began with a homemade ceremony, a plant and people gathering, and a movement meditation where we live. And then it was transformed into a film and sound bath and a 4-channel video installation that was generously commissioned by Bridge Projects in Los Angeles for an exhibition that was entitled We Are All Guests Here. And the theme of this exhibition was really unique. They invited 7 contemporary artists to respond to the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, which happens to be taking place this week, serendipitously. It's a time when religious Jewish people build a temporary structure, like a tent outside of their home, and they are in it as much as possible to celebrate the harvest. They eat in it, some people sleep in it. One of the rituals that they do in the sukkah, it's called, is they have a 4-species plant bundle that they shake in the 4 directions and then above and below them. And I chose to recreate this ritual in relationship to the land where I live now and with the community of people closest to me, using plant species native to our high desert landscape. So the yucca, the pinon, juniper, and prickly pear. Traditionally, it's for plants that are native to the Middle East. And here is one of the Sacred Bouquet plant bundles. There were 16 of us who participated in this ceremony, and I made these bundles thinking of each person as I made them. You can see the pinyon and juniper in the middle, and then the yucca I was able to weave into the band around the bottom, and the prickly pears on the top, which I had to remove all the pricklies from the prickly pear so that everyone could be safe. That was fun. And we walked in silence along our mile-long dirt road with my husband playing a repetitive song on the guitar as we walked. And every 3 minutes we stopped and we shook the bouquets in the 4 directions and above and below us. And, we really tried to focus in our own silence on the harvest, on our bodies, and be grateful for these gifts. And here are some stills. And then at the end of the 2-hour pilgrimage, we lay down on some bedsheet cloths that I had made in the hot sun and rested. And we came together to honor the important reciprocity between us. And it was like a wedding of sorts, celebrating the commitments we had made to each other during challenging, mournful times. And the ceremony was filmed and edited by my close friends, Rachel Schumann and David Sampliner, who are beautiful documentary filmmakers. And a space was created in the gallery to replicate the feeling of the sukkah with 4 large transparent fabric screens in a room-like configuration. Those are about 11 feet long by 7 feet high. And my husband composed a sound bath piece to go along with it. These are some images. Each screen had a different film on it that spoke to that direction and the plant and one of the 4 plant species. And visitors could come and sit on the pillows on the floor and be immersed in the landscape and feel a part of our ceremonial walk. So I'm going to play a clip of one of the films. It might take me a minute to get the sound. That's strange. We tested this. Oops. Is anyone hearing any birds chirping? There's birds at the beginning. Hold on 1 second. Can't have a presentation without a tech issue. Let's see.
Even how the testing went.
Yeah, I think possibly I need to go to. I need to go to the preferences quickly and see what the sound input is on. Excuse me for 1 second here. Oh yeah, it's not on the right thing. Okay, we're good. Now I'm going to blast you probably or something.
Good job.
is the way you walk through the world unique to only you? How does your own bodily experience shape the way you find meaning? This is a great journal prompt. A lot of my prompts are from the For the Wild podcast, which I love. If you're not familiar with it, it's amazing. So over the past 20 years, many of my projects explore the site of the bed and the legacy of sleep, looking at the intersection of materiality and consciousness. And I'm really interested in the wisdom of this horizontal state. When laying down, all parts of our body are on equal ground, and it's non-hierarchical. And I don't know about you all, but whenever I have a challenge in my life, and I have like a question that I really can't seem to come to a resolution about, if I take 5 minutes and just lay down and really just like ask for the answer to that question, often in that position, I get the answer that I need. So I don't know, you can test my hypothesis, but many of my pieces and work, most of my work could be summed up in just at the meeting of where the connection between natural world and rest. And so the next few slides are an ongoing body of work of intricate photography collages made up of photographs of bedding. And sometimes they're combined with actual bedding. So this piece is entitled "The Earth is Our First Bed." It's 8 feet round, and it's made up of hundreds of photographs of black bedding surrounding the piece. And so I'm often using my husband and I's bed as my sort of testing ground for everything, so I'm changing the colors of our sheets all the time based on a project, and then photographing our bed after we wake up, and then printing those photographs of the bed in multiple different sizes on a large-scale printer, and then cutting just the textile out of the photo to capture the unconscious sculptures we make in our sleep. This collage is called Dark Water Drop, and it was part of a series of water drop shaped pieces exploring the importance of clean water and the urgent need to better care for our water systems. This was specifically thinking of the horrific crises in Flint at the time. Here's another water drop. This piece is Sleeping Angel, Grieving Angel. It's 7 feet by 7 feet. This was also made during the pandemic, and it kind of embodies the duality of the weightless flight of a young child's angelic sleep with the tremendous gravity of our collective grief during the pandemic. This is one piece and a part of a series called The Earth is Soft. It kind of speaks to the mystical union of human bodies and the body of the earth, kind of sharing the porousness and softness between the living earth and all beings. What legacy do you want to leave on this earth? How does your body fit into this legacy? So in the past few years, I've held rest workshops on the land where we live. This particular image was a rest workshop for families, so inviting families to come and just rest in the land together. Often families are doing a lot together, but they're not necessarily resting together. So this is a mother and daughter resting in the land. Another rest workshop, I had 12 people gather on a hot summer day under a tent, and we sat drinking lavender sleep tea, and we had our feet in cooling, cleansing foot baths of juniper, and we shared stories about our different sleep experiences. How do we sleep? What rituals and materials prepare us for rest? What are our sleep challenges and pleasures? What would help us quiet our lives a bit more? And so after our conversation, each participant ventured out for a nap or a rest in the landscape at the location of their choice. They just wandered around. They had a hand-dyed bedcloth, and they had tools, a little rake and a little brush, to kind of clear an area under a tree and lay down their bedcloth. And then they had this sleep oil, which a psychiatrist, aromatherapist friend of mine had made to help people sleep, and you anoint your body before you lay down. And they had soothing lavender necklaces to wear. And they rested on the earth under the shade of the pinyon and juniper trees for 40 minutes, and then I walked around the land with a cowbell, waking everybody up, and then we gathered together to connect and just share what the experience was like. And here's an image of a participant's rest space. How does your body express intelligence in ways that go beyond expected ideas of what is societally considered smart? In Detroit at Center Galleries at the College for Creative Studies, I had an exhibition with my longtime collaborator and friend, Kate Dodrell, entitled Earth Sky Bed Table. And we filled a 2,000 square foot gallery with 6 inches of living soil. That was a lot of work. And we hung wild harvested dried plants from New Mexico and Michigan on the ceiling. And we built a deck around the space, and we created an environment to just nurture our bodies and our senses. And so guests could walk up on the deck, and there were spaces where you could take off your shoes and socks. And there were also some of those handmade bed cloths that I made and dyed with plants from our property. And you could there they are. And you could lay down on the soil, looking up at the plant sculptures. And then on the deck, after you were done, we had warm washcloths for everybody to wipe their feet after before they got their shoes back on. And there were plant hydrosols for you to spritz yourself with, made up of New Mexico native plants. And with this exhibition, we had a silent opening. And it was a group meditation. And then throughout the duration of the show, students could come and have yoga or meditation experiences in the space, or even just come and rest in between classes. One day I hope we can all deprogram from the lie that rest, silence, and pausing is a luxury and privilege. It's not. This is by Tricia Hersey in her amazing manifesto, Rest is Resistance. I have an exhibition in New York City entitled From the Bed to the Mountain, and I really wanted to just bring essences of New Mexico to the city. So I created an immersive installation. This is a 46-foot-long photography collage made up of hundreds of photographs of bedding in the form of the Ortiz mountain range where we live. And it depicts these unconscious sculptures we make in our sleep and the richness of the landscape's textures. I made this table of found wood from our property, and there are botanical sculptures, so to speak, on the table with corresponding photography collages of those same botanicals. They're kind of making like a shadow-like effect for each of the plants. This piece, Moon Mother, was in that exhibition. It's a 7-foot round healing portal And I made this thinking of my mother who suffers from arthritis, and the broom snakeweed plant that's making the wreath-like shape has been used you can make it into a tea and use it to treat arthritis. And so I kind of just imagined her and all those who needed healing to be able to walk through this portal. This piece is called Sun, S-U-N, Sun, S-O-N. This is a 7-foot round piece made up of photographs of my son's golden baby blanket, photographed after he woke up, and it's really just pairs the incredible magnitude and power of the high desert New Mexico sun with my son's sleep sculptures. And as a part of the exhibition, I held a workshop with the psychiatrist I mentioned, Dr. Florian Berkmeyer, who's also into plant healing. We held a sensory experience in New York, which was really special. We led participants through the smelling, tasting, and spritzing themselves with native New Mexico plant hydrosols. And we shared our reflections and memories and responses to them. And it was really powerful to bring this kind of slow, healing conversation to a very fast-paced environment, and for people to reflect on their own self-care and their relationship to the plants. How does your connection with the more than human reflect your values? How do you craft your identity through these relationships? So this brings me to a current long-term land-based project that I am in the early research phases of, the sleeping huts. And it's a project to create 3 earthen architectural spaces on the land where we live, one for a family, one for a couple, and one for a single person. And they're all going to be completely designed around a unique, imaginative bed and a nurturing and sensorial sleep experience. And so I thought I'd share with you, I was nominated for this spread competition at Site Santa Fe for this project. And we had to make a promotional video to get people to vote for you. But it was a good lesson to learn how to do. I thought I'd share this with you because does it sound okay? sorry, that was a little repetitive. But it gives you a sense of like the kind of thread through my whole practice and this kind of vision to manifest this hopefully in my lifetime. This is something that I'll have to write many grants for. But in the meantime, I'm collaborating with artist Sarah Ludi to make a virtual reality animation of one of the sleeping huts. And so this is just a still. We're in the process of creating this animation. It's kind of a dreamy representation of the family bed. And once it's complete, you'll be able to feel as if you're walking through the space and get a sense of the spirit of the objects within. And it feels really good to work in a new medium. And when you have a big long-term project that could be 10, 20, 30 years out, finding something that can satisfy while you're moving slowly towards that goal. So I think making this animation is going to end up leading to hopefully some bigger fundraising for the project. What is calling you to surrender? How can you find ease in the process of letting go? So finally, here we are back at the Work in the Gallery exhibition, Sleeping in the Mind. And for the past 2 years, I have been investigating the defunct Cunningham Hill gold mine that is almost in our backyard. As you can see in this image, the wound on the land from the mining over to the left. It's a very large area that I see daily. And I thought, if I'm going to do a long-term project like the sleeping huts, I really need to go deep into the history of the land. And so really starting with the 200 plus years that there was gold mining in this area is kind of what I've been focusing on. Learning as much as I can about the history, the stories from people in the community, and the environmental impact on the surrounding ecosystem. And as local historian William Baxter wrote, the history of New Mexico mining and of the Ortiz Mountains is a tale of human greed and survival, of politics and murder, of dreamers and those who lived off them. And so as a part of my research, I've been reaching out to folks who've had a direct experience in the mine, those who have worked in the mine, reading through historical accounts and papers from the New Mexico Environment Department, and also just really paying close attention to my intuitive research, which I think all artists do, using all my senses, and especially the visual, tactile, and auditory experiences that I feel in the area when I'm nearby. And so the intricate collages in the gallery are made up of photographs of bedding, and the bedding is really a metaphor or a portal into bringing more softness and intimacy to some challenging history. And so this piece in the gallery is called Ortiz Mountain Scar, the bikini in quotes. Unfortunately, the neighborhood has named the scar the bikini because of its triangular shape, which is very disturbing to me. And I'm here, I'm like, every time I drive past this daily, I'm just like, I feel like a knife going into my heart. Like, it's been 25 years since the mine has been closed, and there's very little trees or plant life growing back in that area. And they're supposed to be remediating the mine, but I'm not sure exactly what that means. That's part of my investigation. So it's a long time. Remediation is many, many lifetimes. And so I'm just going to run through so some of the environmental issues that we have to be concerned with are groundwater contaminants. All the people in the region have wells, and so they used a cyanide leaching system to mine the gold. And so we have to be very concerned about water testing at our home on a regular basis, soil remediation, just what the environmental laws are, and thinking about the overall community impact that this mine has created. This is Fool's Gold Bouquet 1 and 2. And Fool's Gold is the common name for pyrite iron sulfide, a mineral that resembles gold and is all over the ground where we walk, but is different in consistency and other properties from gold. And so these are Fool's Gold shards that are in the gallery. And this is Gold Nugget. And it's kind of poetic that gold has been and is so magnetic in its qualities, but it's actually a diamagnetic material, a metal, and it has a weak repelling force towards magnetism. So I think that's kind of a poetic dynamic considering the desire for it. And the last piece in the exhibition, Family of Gold, Reincarnated from the Tailings Pile, it really speaks to the families that were separated, taken advantage of, displaced and hurt, or killed due to the mining business, and the precarious and unsafe conditions, the power dynamics between colonizers, local native communities, and just the need for survival. So in the mining process, there's a tailings pile that is the earth that is removed and piled along the side. This is the waste material from the mining that is deemed invaluable and not having enough gold in it. And with this piece, I really imagined like a family rising up from this tailings pile to share their history and stories and have a new chance at life, unburdened by a value system of greed. What is nature telling you right now? How is it changing day by day? Is there something you could track in your surroundings to watch the shift? I love this image that I found on Earthworks. And I'll end with this quote, and I realize, wow, we're going over time. So thank you very much for staying and bearing with me and listening. Commitment to a love ethic transforms our lives by offering us a different set of values to live by. In large and small ways, we make choices based on a belief that honesty, openness, and personal integrity need to be expressed in public and private decisions. This is from Bell Hook's amazing book, All About Love, New Visions. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I'm always going back to it. So I'll end with that, and thank you so much for listening and having me here to share. And I don't know, Denise, what timeline-wise, whether you want to do Q&A here, or you want to just talk more informally in the gallery. I'm open to either.
Yeah, let's ask a couple questions if anyone has them.
Okay.
I'll put light back on.
And I'm open to really informal comments too. It doesn't need to be in the form of a question, but just appreciate anything that stood out to you.
Anyone have any comments or questions for Mira? Can you talk a little bit about how the Pueblo have influenced your art or your living, and anything about that?
Yeah.
Mira, can you repeat the question back to the microphone just for the recording?
Okay, let me make sure I got that right. Can you speak a little bit about how the Pueblo peoples that have lived locally have influenced
your art,
in
and
my art?
also what does unceded mean?
Unceded means that it was taken over without their permission. So there are many pueblos in New Mexico, and I am definitely no expert, having only lived there 12 years. I'm really in the learning phase. But what I, the Pueblos are very active, and a lot of them have been displaced and moved to a number of locations in New Mexico over time, just like I'm sure has happened here with the Chippewa population, right? I'm assuming that they were, I think I read that their reservation was moved to this area. The most important thing for me is to try not to generalize too much about the experience and to really take relationships one by one, especially in my work, because there are a lot of different individual experiences. And it's really, for me, about listening and not trying to speak for any one group or person, and just realizing that part of the healing is just the listening. And that's a very important thing. We're not really in a listening culture. We're in a talking culture. So, I guess so much of my work is about even reattuning, unlearning for myself, relearning how to listen, really truly listen. So that's a simple answer to your question. Thank you for asking that.
Can you talk a little bit about the design decisions you made regarding the sleeping huts themselves and some of the details there that are pretty interesting, like digging down into the earth a little further and the domes? And it's just so beautiful, and I'm curious what your process was in thinking of those specifics.
Well, it's definitely in its infancy, nothing is really solidified, but making an animation is that's one of my fears with making the animation, is people are going to take it really literally, because animation is so slick and smooth, and I kept wanting to add texture, more plants, more, so with each time, the process is getting very laborious to add more texture to the animation, because it just feels so, coming from someone who's so tactile, it feels so flat. But I do really want to honor the different histories in the area, in the objects that I make, and to make sure that we're making things as close to the land as possible, because I do imagine them to be, somewhat permanent structures, but I also don't want there to be a lot of impact on the land, and I also want it to be really reflective of the land. So a lot of basketry, I want to use traditional yucca basket making techniques, and I will not be the one making everything. I want to be able to commission people who have those skills and support people who have been doing that for a long time. So I imagine the interior to have these yucca woven baskets that will be storage for your clothes. There's not really going to be traditional furniture, I want everything to be really built in. The bed being dug down, some of these decisions are really intuitive, but that one felt really strong. And I do think that there is a deep connection between sleep and death, and there's a lot of writing about that we kind of die every night in our sleep a little bit, and that we don't need to be afraid of that. That's very natural. And there's also something about being inside the earth that just sounds amazing to me. So maybe we're also sort of reconciling some things in that act of, and then also coming together to sleep as a family again. Families used to do that all the time. Now we separate each other. So what would it be like just to all sleep together? Might be a little crazy, but so it's and the ceramic, there won't be running water. You can gather your water from the well. There's a well nearby, and I wanted to have some earthen ceramic water vessels that were made with the earth from the land. So it's going to be a very slow and deliberate process of like making textiles from Navajo churro wool that tell the history of the Navajo churro sheep that came over from Spain and really influenced the textile industry in New Mexico. I want to commission books of poetry from local poets, bedside poetry. But I also want it to be really simple. I want you to have to tend to your body in a very essential way. So that's a long answer to your question. There's lots of potential details. Thanks.
Mira, can you speak a little bit to some of your observations about how the communal experiences have impacted the participants, or their feedback that you've received or just witnessed through their participation?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really wonderful to be silent with a group of people. Like, how often do we do that? I don't know, I just felt like in most of the instances we learned that we could be quiet together, that we didn't have to fill the space with talk. And that in a way, we learned something about ourselves in that process, like different types of intelligences that we have within our bodies, and how we could relate to other beings, other plant beings or animal beings or things in nature together, but without talking, and that we could process like collective feelings together. So during the pandemic, obviously, when we were doing that ceremonial walk, there's a lot of grieving that people were doing, the fear that everybody had been living with, the loved ones they were caring for. And so there was tears, from some people. There was moments of laughter together too. And it's just, we were just redirecting our senses, and people, I think, just appreciated the space and time to do that. And for people in the rest workshops, I found like many people had gone camping, but they had just never laid on the earth without lots of stuff, or lots of protection. So there was like working through just the fear of the bugs or the snakes or the creatures that could come near you, but then realizing you were also okay at that same moment, and that you had the knowledge within you to deal with whatever might emerge. So that was really special reflections from the rest workshops. Yeah.
How have you handled, because I think every artist in every medium, it deals with this to an extent, how have you handled criticism of your work? And has that influenced you moving forward? Have you just decided to move past it? Yeah.
That's a great question. I'm not really active on social media, so I don't know what that kind of criticism feels like. And that's a very different, very relevant universe that I know a lot of people deal with. But in general, I'm willing to hear reflections, but I'm not really a proponent of this idea of criticism. I don't think that is the world that I want to live in, even in the realm of art criticism. Like, I like critics who don't call themselves critics, they call themselves writers. They inherently just process what they're experiencing. it's just, I have like an aversion to this, some level of, like, I think we should be able to hear someone else's individual opinion. But if someone is attacking or kind of has an agenda to communicate something that is not in a kind way or respectful way, I just don't have the patience for that. Like, I just think that we all deserve to be spoken to respectfully, and there's always a way to give feedback without being heavy-handed, you know, like where you can talk about your own individual observation without attacking. I don't know if that's helpful or if that's what you're looking for. And I also just, just try and just move on if somebody is just displacing their own issues onto you. Yeah.
I love this idea of the negative impressions we make when we sleep and your term sleep sculptures. I love that. And I'm just curious about the process, because photography is obviously a big part of what you do. I mean, when you see your kids better, you're like, no, don't make that, don't make that. I mean, does it look like really particularly good one day? And what's the photography like? I mean, do you take several angles? Or?
Yeah, I'm not a trained photographer, and I really see like the camera as like a phenomenological tool. You know, like it's a way for me to just capture at a distinct moment in time an experience. And so I don't use any lighting or anything. I do use a good quality camera, but I often circumvent the bed. And I do have to sometimes say, don't make your bed. And it's so funny, both my kids now just like have this religious thing about making their bed. It's like almost like an opposition to my dad. They're both like really into it, so it's very funny. But I photograph from like almost like around the bed. Shot, like completely around. Then I get on a ladder up above. You know, I go low, lay down on the floor, shoot at any angle I could shoot it. I do. And then I really appreciate how the natural light changes the coloring. So you'll see in some of them, you know, it's different than the color of the actual textile, and all these new sort of, I feel like, unconscious imagery comes out of just the light falling on the textile and how that interacts with the fold. And so I appreciate all those nuances. It's almost as if the elements are a part of the work intrinsically then, because I'm not trying to mess with them or control them. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I think if we have any more questions, we can take them down to the gallery to ask Mira in the gallery. So thank you so much, Mira. That was
Thank you, Denise, for everything, and thank you for staying late.
So join us down in the gallery. There's lots of great food down there. Brownies, hot apple cider, hummus, vegetables.
Hot apple cider.
It's a really nice option. It's a perfect space.